This is Doug Green, and I'm the publisher of Telecom Reseller, and I'm very pleased to have with us again Lorrissa Horton, who's the Senior Vice President and General Manager and Chief Product Officer in Collaboration at Cisco. Lorrissa, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, AI is something we're reporting on like almost every day. Every other article's about AI, but it's really amazing that we're going to be able to talk to Cisco about AI and the role that it plays in contact centers and why human involvement is still really critical. So, I'm interested in finding out, obviously Cisco's point of view of this is, and let's start off with, what efforts do you think companies should make to upskill or reskill existing agents to utilize the technology that's to its fullest potential to reduce employee churn?
So with regards to employee churn, I think when I look across this industry, it's upwards of 40% on average. And when we look at what is the experience of an agent from starting, getting trained up, handling their first set of calls, escalations, manager and subject matter expert support, to eventually being disengaged and leaving, there are so many parts across that entire journey where AI can help. Whether it is assisting in the first set of calls so that you kind of have that little extra support on how to respond to customers, whether it's that wrap up and saving a little bit of time after every call to be a little faster and getting your service level and your handle times down, or it's just understanding of all of my agents today who needs a break that maybe I didn't pay attention to because they just had a really rough set of conversations. And just as a human being, sometimes there are certain words and emotions that we're impacted with that just require a little bit of breathing to get back and do your best work. So I think we are seeing AI definitely as a huge enhancement to all of those places, which really eventually lead to higher engagement at the agent level and lower churn. And so agent wellness is what we've been calling a lot of these categories, and really focusing on minimizing that churn so you have a more, I would say, experienced and agent population who are also more engaged by leveraging all of the signals and understanding how they're doing across that entire journey from beginning to being, one of your very active, reliable agents in your pool.
There's almost a little bit of a paradox in your answer because a lot of people outside of the technology sphere especially are very fearful about AI replacing human beings, almost being maybe hostile to people and so on. And yet, what you've just told me is that if AI is deployed properly here in the contact center, where, as you say, yes, we've had historically high churn and low employee satisfaction, you're saying actually AI can be a tool to make people happier, make people more comfortable, that actually the use of AI can strategically, actually improve things.
Yeah, I think the concern has always been about, is AI going to replace my job?
Right.
And I think that replacement will happen in places where it's very, very simple tasks or Q&A, where many generations now are used to getting that information in a self-service capacity through chat or search. Like those scenarios, I do see replacement happening. But the reality is where we see the human value is when it's not simple and basic Q&A, but actually these complex tasks and the complex conversations that require empathy, that require knowing the concerns that your customer has. And that's just where it is going to be handled very differently than a virtual agent. And so when I talk about that population, which I don't think is going to be, gone anytime soon at all, I think that is where the assistance is really in aiding you to do your best job every single day, every step of that process, and aiding us, allowing us, the systems providers, the vendors, to really do smarter things around how we redirect calls, how we support a supervisor in managing the entire system as we understand the human beings better, right? I think there are many signs that we can find that human beings are already fatigued,
Right.
They're already short, there are signs of struggle there, and we kind of ignore them and we just look at things like, oh, this last call was really long. Like, why was that, right? And I need to go help them. I need to go manage them, coach them. But it's like, no, they got yelled at for like 2 hours straight. They just need a mental break and they need to be able to get their own mental health in check as they are taking these harder calls. And so that is where I do see a lot of room for improvement, because I don't think these human agents are going away anytime soon. I mean, I always use healthcare as an example. The
Hmm.
comfort level we are going to have to expose some of the most vulnerable information about ourselves is not going to go away anytime soon. We're not going to be comfortable just speaking to a virtual agent in that capacity. It's too important, it's too personal, private, that humans are going to be very much necessary. And I would say the same thing about finances.
So it's interesting what you're telling me, that the human is still facing the human that's actually making the call and making the query, but behind the human working for the company is maybe a little bit of AI to help
Yeah, I think
coaching and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think we're going to see AI across the board. We talked about the self-learning contact center at Enterprise Connect this year. And part of that is really continuing to learn from the human beings that are already doing this, the content that they already use, the knowledge base that they already leverage. But how do we turn every agent into the best agent that you have on your team? Because there is variance, and there is, a difference in not just training, but I would say capacity of each agent, and I would say experience. But how do we leverage all of that so that every agent has the right amount of support and assist for every instance of conversation they are having from the best on your team? And that is this like self-fulfilling, continuously improving ecosystem that we can provide in support of the agents.
So Melissa, just let's stay with that a second, because if the AI is helping me be a better agent, it sounds like you're saying that agents will be trained differently than they have been in the past.
100% agree. I think we are going to see agents turn into basically knowledge workers, folks who are handling very
Hmm.
complex tasks. And there's a degree of readiness for every customer or every business with regards to how many of their systems can be fully automated, which is also going to be a limiting factor. Training agents to know where to get information, where to make changes, where to process tasks. That is a multi-step thing. And if all of those systems are not available via API such that you can fully automate via virtual agent, again, the human has to decipher where do I do what and when. And I think that is becoming more and more complex over time as easier things can get automated. And that's really where the AI assist will be available, and where the human, ability to make decisions based on constantly changing context, that may be new, that may be things we've never seen before, will be incredibly valuable. And again, that feels closer to a knowledge worker than a task-based worker, which is what we've typically seen in the contact center.
So let's step back a second, and maybe you can give me sort of what the vision is, what you think the contact center is going to look like maybe 5 or 10 years from now, as AI becomes increasingly integrated.
So when we talk about our vision, it is, there's a couple key elements. Number one, I think these are going to be much more proactive in nature. And I actually think it's customer experience as a whole, not the contact center. The contact center, by default and definition, it requires a customer to come to a business to request something. And when we see this surge of change in people's comfort level in doing self-service, and also the pleasure that we get when a business just knows us and what we need when we need it, I think that is going to be a huge change, and with CPAS being a big part of that overall experience. Next, I think the change from what you can accomplish in a more chat-based or digital manner is on the rise, as people are now replacing more and more back-end systems, back of the house kind of operations with more modern systems of record. You can finally automate things, and it's not just basic Q&A with a bot. So I think that evolution is going to happen pretty quickly. I actually just showed a demo to a customer where in their environment, it would have taken 3 agents,
Hmm.
human agents, right? Service, discovery, sales, scheduling, and then payment. So each agent would have been trained with different systems, different tools, and they keep handing off to each other. And we showed that whole thing happening end to end without a human agent. And they were shocked. They're like, "Well, could we do that?" And I'm like, "Well, it depends. What systems are you using? Could we integrate into something like that?" So I think people are seeing the potential there now. And then they're looking at, what do human agents handle? And some of these are the hardest problems, your most important customers. And how do we help them be successful with every one of those touches? It's really interesting to see some of the companies who have stopped using handle time as a metrics and instead looked at customer happiness. So proactive nature, I think understanding agent well-being and overall customer happiness is so critical as new measures that are evolving in this entire ecosystem. I think intelligence is just key, not just in a virtual agent, which is what almost everyone goes to when we think about AI, but intelligence in what's happening in your entire environment, from the transactions, the number of people you touch, how happy they are, how much they've accomplished, all the way to agents and supervisors and what they're actually doing for the entire business. I think that whole view of what metrics we use will change in this ecosystem. So that is our focus. That is where we're looking at. We believe that we can actually maximize satisfaction while minimizing your costs. Labor cost has been the highest cost in the industry. And what we're looking at is how many people are supporting not just the agent and the supervisor, but are supporting the entire ecosystem. It's a very, very large team. And so we see all of those coming into fruition.
Well, Lorrissa, I really want to thank you for joining us today and giving us a brief overview of how Cisco sees AI actually enhancing the employee experience, maybe also enhancing the CX experience. Where can we learn more about Cisco's vision of AI in the contact center?
On webex.com, we have all the links to our contact center information and what we're doing, what's coming, and definitely also at WebEx One, which is our event that is coming up here in October.
Well, don't miss that. And thank you very much, Lorrissa, for joining us. I'm looking forward to our next call, and we're going to be talking about CX. But for now, thank you very much.
Thanks.